Welcome to this very special episode of Lost in Theaters. As we will discuss early in the podcast, we recorded in a car, #CarCast, and this unfortunately resulted in some pretty scattered audio. The audio is mostly comprehensible. It is additionally problematic because the microphone was pointed in my direction primarily, so Ruth is a bit faint, tragically. So maybe don't turn up your volumes all the way, folks, because it can be a bit piercing, but some of it might be hard to hear, and we apologize. Hopefully next week's podcast will be clearer to hear. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy the podcast.
Welcome back to Lost in Theaters, the podcast where we talk about movies that have slipped through the cracks of pop culture. My name is Rachel Looley, and I'm here with...
Okay, this is new.
And we have a special cameo by...
Hi there.
That's Blake. Good old Blake. And he's here because this is a very special edition. Why is it special, Ruth?
Are you ready to do that?
Because we're in a car! #CarCast! Which sounds an awful lot like what? 88227-8255. Hello, you're on CarCast. No, that's not our number. That's that's the car. That's the car talk number. Anyways.
We don't have a phone number.
No, you can't call the podcast. No, unfortunately.
Unless your home phone counts as like public use. What counts as public use?
People
I'm
don't
so
have
sorry, we're coming back to this.
people don't have home phones anymore. So
You know?
not really. We barely do.
Do cell phone numbers count as public use in general? No.
Blake says no. Okay, but yes. So so last week we didn't have a podcast. Sad day. Would you like to tell people why, Ruth?
Rachel did math wrong.
No, I didn't do math wrong. It's called finals murdered us. Yeah.
What's that too?
The death of the final and the resurrection of the end of final.
I thought you also did the math wrong.
No, I didn't do the math wrong. It was just.
There was an hours calculation.
Oh, actually, that's true. I did do the math wrong. We were gonna be late anyway, and then finals happened and we died. It was so bad. It's okay though. It's over now.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Ruth, are you ready for this week's film?
Yes.
So ready. I'm so ready. And so okay, here's the title. The Ramen Girl.
I'm happy.
I knew you'd be happy. Came out in 2008.
Okay.
Feels like it came out in 2008. But not in a bad way. It works. The cell phones are too big. No, the home phones are huge. They look like bricks, and the cell phones are flip phones.
Yeah.
And
Good phone.
it's set in Japan.
I am continuing to be happy.
I know. I saw this movie and thought I have to watch it for Ruth. For those who don't know, Ruth makes ramen, real good ramen. Like not. No. I feel after watching this movie.
Bringing people's hopes up.
I know. After watching this movie, saying that she makes ramen is a little bit of an overstatement. She cooks ramen for sure, but from the package. But then she elevates the package ramen. She elevates the package ramen to a high level. Whatever that accent was.
When Miyazaki. Oh, nobody knows what it is.
Everybody knows who Miyazaki is.
The guy who.
Totoro.
Most famous Studio Ghibli animations.
Totoro.
He makes ramen.
Totoro.
There's a great video of him on YouTube making ramen for his whole entire crew, cast, people.
Yeah.
There was so much ramen. I've never seen anyone grab that much ramen in that spot before.
You just gotta do it, man. So yes, this movie, yes, zero spoilers. Yeah, we're at zero spoilers, so we can't talk about what's in the movie. But the title is The Ramen Girl, so, and I've been thinking about who this movie's for, and I would like to say it's you, right? Like it would be awesome if it was for you, but it's made like a an American's love letter to ramen and Japan, and the Japanese ramen culture.
Is this coming out of recovering from World War II?
No, it's 2008. No,
Yeah, no, that's
it's
what I
set
mean.
in 2008.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's still a thing.
No, I'm sure it is. But this movie felt more like someone in America was like, you know what I love?
Aww.
Ramen! You know what I'm gonna make? A movie about ramen! Like, that was what happened. And even like to the point that the plot is really stereotypical, and it just, and sort of magical,
Okay.
and kind of mystical.
Okay, that aligns with like Japanese children's movies.
I was thinking of Studio Ghibli, actually.
Okay.
Like, it could have been, in a weird way, it could have been a Studio Ghibli film.
That's kind of
Just
neat.
in the way it all sort of happened. It is, but because when I think of what that sort of movies, it wasn't made by Studio Ghibli, though.
Yeah.
I think it was made by an American imitating all of this. So it hits a little
Nice.
different.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't hit as a Japanese film.
Yeah.
And so that is for somebody, but I'm not even sure. I'm not sure it's for you even.
Okay.
But it is. What's the word I'm looking for? Very. I've lost my train of thought, Ruth. It's gone literally out of my window.
I'm so sorry.
It's just gone. No, it's about ramen. That's very helpful. Oh yeah, that's what it was. So I could imagine this movie, some history teacher not knowing what to do when they're out and giving this movie for the children to watch
Really?
about cultural exchange.
That would be like a really impressive history teacher.
Yeah, well, maybe. It's not a documentary, you know that, right?
I know. You told me. No spoilers, Rachel.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I could imagine a teacher being like, what movie?
They're putting an effort to find something that's slightly out of their path.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
letting them watch movies.
Yeah.
There's a sub.
That's pretty usual, isn't it?
Oh, yes, so testness. Rachel just dropped her phone.
I am picking it up. Okay, but yeah, so it's about like cultural exchange, and they would think that this movie would be a good opportunity to see that. In some ways, it is. So that's interesting.
This is going weird places, isn't it?
Not super weird place.
So what's the music like?
It's a weird mix, and that's another thing that was very interesting. It had cinematic music with sort of Asian music influenced Japanese like cartoon sounds and songs, and
Really?
yeah, at times. But it was definitely not entirely that. It wasn't. It's not necessarily a soundtrack that you know, like Christopher Nolan or something, or what's his name, Hans Zimmer's soundtracks, where you just listen to them.
Sorry.
Good Hans Zimmer. I don't know where he's from. I'm sorry, Hans. It was the name. It's just so catchy. So Brittany Murphy is in this, who you don't know, but she played in Clueless. I don't know if she had a major role or not, but she has the leading role in this, and she tragically passed away in 2009, like the year after this movie. Yeah, and her boyfriend, and so she's not really in anything else. Well, she's in stuff before this, but this is one of her last films.
Yeah.
Additionally, the guy who directed this film, whose name I forgot to write down, this is his last film accredited to him on IMDb.
And you forgot to write him down?
His last name is A.C.K. Ackerman, I think. However, it's the first screenplay by this woman, and now I wrote her name down,
Okay.
by Becca Topol. So it's this weird conglomeration of like last things by some people, first by others, and I think because of that, because of the weird combo of, and then besides that woman, Brittany Murphy, there were no other major stars from the American cinema in the movie, but there were, so it didn't really hit any mainstream things in that way. But it did hit some major milestones as far as Japanese American filmmaking. It was shot in Japan with Japanese actors speaking Japanese.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, so it's really cool because the whole movie, there's a lot of Japanese in this movie. A lot of Japanese, and they just subtitle it all.
Yeah.
And to comedic effect, actually, they use it well,
Yeah.
and it's so it's pretty cool that way. Okay, what's interesting too, I was gonna say this earlier and I forgot. I will probably talk more. I don't know. No, I'm not gonna say that. I was gonna say, but we might talk less in the major spoilers and more in the beginning part. But I don't know. I can't predict the future, Ruth.
Are you ready to move on to other things?
We're gonna go into the medium spoilers now. Okay, so it's about a girl, a woman, she's 4 years out of college.
A girl, a woman, a young. Okay.
Yeah, so it explicitly says she's 4 years out of college. She moves to Japan to be with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend proceeds to essentially dump her, and then she gets stuck. And they're not stuck, but then she has a bit of a crisis, and she winds up becoming a ramen apprentice from the guy down the road.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And there's.
He's hitting the microphone.
I'm sorry, it's a car.
Seems deliberate.
And there's elements of mysticism. There's mystical elements in the.
Like Shinto Buddhism?
Maybe. No. I mean, there is some talk of like shrines, and but besides that, additionally, there's just little things that happen that are unexplained. So that's what made it feel kind of like a Miyazaki film.
Yeah.
In that occasionally in Miyazaki it'll be like, and the chair does a backflip, and you never know why. You know, you're like, that's cool. That's chill, whatever. The world is like this. And I did it again. I'm sorry. I did. So that's the setup to the film. That we moved into low spoilers there. We did say that earlier. Do you have any questions? I forgot to ask about questions.
Yeah, can I watch the movie?
Yeah. The thing is,
Okay, what's wrong with the movie?
it's a little sappy. I know that sounds weird because sappy's good, but I think it would have worked better as an anime, which sounds weird. But I don't know anything about anime.
What the bad thing is.
It's the way the romance plays out.
Okay.
There's some romance, and in person, I don't know. The actor, she does a really good job. Her character is a little annoying to me, but I came to terms with it. She was fine. It was good.
Describe the annoyance.
It sort of. There's a bit of shouting that goes on, and it's kind of grates on you. So it would be nice to have.
Yelling into my face?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I know.
Tell me more.
I'm sorry. It's a bit like the Karate Kid with Ramen, though, so that's kind of fun, but without the action of the Karate Kid.
So, more similarities, please.
So like the Karate Kid with Ramen, and sort of like a documentary, but not at all, with lots of plot, and you don't ever hear anything about how the noodles are made. You just see it's more about the broth than the noodles.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, you learn that big time from this one, and it's also sort of, about beating or not letting expectations about you control you. Once again, it just sounds like I'm hyping up the film, so I guess it's a great movie, guys. So we'll go into the major spoilers, and as I talk about it,
Incredibly Japanese.
does it really? So actually, that's one thing I couldn't find. Is I looked into it and I couldn't find. There was one article in the Japanese Times about this movie that it was gone. Couldn't find the page, the web page.
Existed at one point.
Yeah, and it no longer did.
Okay.
So I couldn't find the Japanese reception of this film, which I would have really loved to know.
Yeah.
Because I don't really know a lot about Japanese culture, so I can't really say.
Yeah.
So as I tell you things, you know a bit more than I do. So you might be able to say something like, that checks out, or that's not normal.
I mean, they sure took a side on the ramen thing.
They did. They were really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, it's often either, like, you work your life spending, this phrasing is working really badly.
Doing great, Ruth. Doing
Trying
great.
to figure out the perfect noodles or the perfect broth.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I mean, you get good at both.
Right. Yeah. But this was
But
the
some
broth.
people really go for the noodles.
Okay. Interesting. All right, Ruth. Are you ready for the major spoiler section?
Yes. I forgot you have a sound effect for that now.
I know, it's really exciting. So it starts off with we meet the girl. She's in Japan. She's on a train, and we find out she's in Japan with her boyfriend. She meets some expats at a bar. Expatriates,
Yeah.
people who've moved away from America and are living in a foreign country. And when you're living in a foreign country and you find, quote, expats,
Yeah.
then you've found people who speak the same language as you. So that can be great. Although I actually don't know if they're from, one of them sounds British and the other one sounds Southern, but then she straight up says that she's not Southern. She just does it for fun.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
Like that.
There are. Here we are. And she's like, I never thought I'd end up in Tokyo. I just couldn't do the whole long distance thing. She's like, and then it turns out her boyfriend doesn't want her there, and then leaves, and she's really sad and has a breakdown in the road, and she's wearing her what's the word I'm looking for? House coat, and all the Japanese people are sort of watching her, and she's gotta go up the stairs, and has a bit of a crisis, and then she sees the wind starts to blow. It's like Mary Poppins. The wind blows, and she sees down the way this got these big my hand is going up and down. No one can see it. These big, not curtains, they're like half curtain paper with Japanese words on them, and they're cut in like one cuts butter for mac and cheese, when you cut up the butter for mac and cheese, when you're like,
Do people do that?
I don't know,
Is
man.
that just us?
I might see us.
So they're basically these flags that hang from a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, and each one has a Japanese character on it, and they're usually above doors.
Yes.
Yeah, they
Yes.
hang down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she goes to this place, and it's closed, and she goes in, and the man is behind the counter, and he's drinking something, and she's like, hello, and he's like, starts talking in Japanese, and he's like, we're closed, get out, and she's like, I don't know what you're saying, and he's like, we're closed, what are you doing here, and she's like, I don't know, and then she starts crying, and he's like, what is happening, and so, so he's like, sit down, and so she sits down, and then the guy's wife comes in, and she's just like, oh my gosh, is she okay? Do we need to take her to the hospital? And he's like, I don't know what her problem is. It's gonna be fine. She's like sitting over there crying, and she's like, oh man, okay. And let's make her some ramen. So they make a little bit of ramen, and they're like, what should we put in it? And the funny line is, they put some spinach in it. He's like, Popeye likes spinach. They put the spinach in, they make this ramen, they bring it to her, and they're standing there, and she's like, I just don't know what I'm doing with my life, and she like pours out her life story and everything, and they're just standing there.
Do they understand English?
And he turns to her and is like, I don't know what she said. Is she okay? And she's like, I don't know. And they're like, just eat, ito. And so, and she's like, thank you so much. So they do not know what they're saying to each other, okay? And this continues through the whole film. The girl is there for under a year, and it's a topic of conversation. She has a dictionary, and they're like, the communication is so bad, and at one point, at one point,
I'm sure it was really different.
Yes, it's true.
It sounds like Rachel got lost in Japan.
A little bit.
Except that my aunt actually went to Japan.
Yeah, that's true. Well, so what happens is
For the aunt listening, you will know.
hello. No, but so they this comes up at some point later, and the wife is like, so when are you gonna hire a translator, because you're gonna kill each other? And he's like, it's fine. So they it's crazy. And another time, so the other guy's like, does he speak English? And she's like, no. It's like, what? Everyone is confused, okay? It's not as though they're endorsing this activity, going to a foreign country and not learning the language at all. So after she drinks the ramen, she feels much better, and she looks up, and, well, she drinks the broth, and they laugh at her, because you're not supposed to drink the broth, apparently. And she looks up, and there's this, those classic golden cat things? Yeah.
The little lucky
Yeah, with the
cat.
hand that
It's not a
moves.
lucky cat, I forgot. I don't know what it's called.
Okay, well, it's
Lucky cat.
the hand that goes down like this. You like this, folks listening with your ears.
Not your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. It the hand goes down and then wiggles in a weird animated way.
Oh.
And this is never explained really. It just happens.
Yeah.
After she drinks the ramen, and then she goes. And the next day, she's at her really boring desk job at a Japanese lawyer place, and she's like, hey, have you ever made ramen before? And then the woman is like, me? No, it's too difficult. You need training to make ramen. And she says, what? So the next day she goes back, and there's a sad Japanese businessman at the ramen counter. And it's like a whole counter of people.
Yeah.
So she sits down, and he sits down, and the man who's the chef looks at them, and there's like, there have been already, and there still is. This is the biggest one. This ramen montage, where it's, this is how you know it's someone who just was so in love with ramen. He puts the noodles and he drains them, and and then he puts them and arranges the bowls and brings it to the people, and
This is also very anime.
in slow. And see, it was kind of funny. And then he brings it to them, and she drinks it, and the businessman drinks it, and they both start laughing uncontrollably.
Just used to be anime.
Yes, they're having a really good time. And so then she comes back another day. Oh, well, actually, she ran.
It just sounds like a Japanese food commercial.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. She was running that the next day, and she ran into a parade, and they were carrying, I think it was the shrine, in the parade, and everyone's clapping, and then she joins them. I don't really get the significance of this, but it might be significant. It comes up later. I'm not sure. It's probably a cultural thing I don't understand.
Okay.
So then she goes back the next day, and the guy is like, no, we don't have any ramen left. We've sold it all. And then she's like, oh. And then the woman, apparently her foot is hurt or something. I couldn't really tell, but she looks at her foot, and she's like, oh, let me help you bring out the ramen to people. So she helps them work the rest of the night. And she falls asleep. Her name's Abby, by the way. She falls asleep, and then the wife is like, do you think we should make her go home? It's like the place is closed and dark.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, yes, send the girl home. What are we doing? So they kick her out, and he's like, go to bed. It's telling her all of this in Japanese. She has no idea what's being said. She just gets kicked out. She's walking, and then the wind comes again. And she turns around, and she's smiling, and she runs back into the ramen place, and the wind comes with her. The wind comes with her again. Very, very, and everything's jingling, and they're like, what's happening? And she says, teach me. Again, he has no idea what she said. Teach me ramen, And so eventually, they communicate.
How does that happen? You just say those words.
Dictionary, pointing, the word ramen,
Okay.
the word sensei comes up,
Okay.
and the guy, they figure it out. if anything, this is a testament to the power of communication among humans. So this is really funny. I was thinking of this morning. I couldn't believe this came back to me, but the guy is like, come back at 5 a.m. He says in Japanese, and she says, awesome, and high fives him. And she says, so excited. He's like, no, come back at 5. And she does it several times. High fiving the man is ready to snap. So then she eventually figures it out. Next day at 5 a.m, he didn't think she was gonna show up, but she does. And then he sets her to cleaning all the dishes. And so the turns out the regulars start betting on when she'll quit.
Oh my god.
Because the regular Ramen people, one of whom has a son who really likes her. That doesn't come up much later, actually. It's really mysterious. But so the regulars they start betting because he's a tyrant. Everyone agrees. The man, they call him a tyrant. They're like,
Really?
yeah, he's way too intense about it. And even she calls, she's like, why do you keep throwing things at me? I don't like this at all. And they have very intense conversations, and it's lots of shouting. She finds pictures of their son. They're hidden. It's dramatic. She sniffs the stewing vegetables and then opens the kettle beside it and finds an entire pig's head.
Yeah.
So sort of just, snapshots of what's going on. So there's this really intense, they have one really shout out match or whatever, and she quits, and she's like, I can't do this. You're being mean, and she leaves, and then she goes, and then he's like, clean, and she's like, why do you keep, that's all you want, I want to make ramen. And she goes home, then she goes into her apartment, and it's a disaster. She's like, clean. So then she comes back the next day, and she says, the only reason I thought I wanted to come back was because I wanted to be your student. And she's just sitting there, and she's sad, it's confusing. And then he asks for her phone, and she gives it to him, and then he stomps on it with his Japanese wooden shoe with the wedges thing, and he just stomps on it because this whole time she's been calling that boy who left her. It's just every day, and she's done, and he stomps on the phone. That's just okie dokie then. So then the wife in the middle of a shift one night calls her, brings her out of the main dining room where she's serving, brings her to the back room, and is like, here, and she gives her this money, and she says in Japanese, this is your first month's salary, don't tell him. Go take a vacation. And she gets the word vacation across, it all comes, and she runs out the back door. She's like, it's gonna be more, so she's great. Oh my goodness, she's awesome. So she takes her this vacation. I know.
Don't tell me.
Yeah. Her and the expats go out, and there's this woman. There was a woman she met earlier, and she meets her now, and they call her a goddess. The goddess of I don't remember something or other, and all this and that. And they meet these Japanese businessmen, one of whose name is Toshi, and Toshi speaks English. And they talk. Yeah, he did a year in California going to school for college. Yeah, Abby, they hit it off or whatever, but then he goes and they go, and it's a great little night of relaxation. The next day, Abby goes to shopping with the old man for ramen ingredients, and the old man, she doesn't see this, but the old man, this truck rolls up with a father-son duo of ramen chefs, and they're like, look, it's my son, and he's gonna take over my business. Where's your son? And he's like sad.
That's super depressing.
It's so sad. He's so sad. But then the car rolls away, and then Abby is coming carrying all the vegetables. It's really sweet. And you're like, oh, yay. And so then he gets to start teaching her. Okay? It's them sitting at this table with two bowls. And he says, you need to observe the ramen. All this is in Japanese. The harmony. Feel the spirit of the ramen. And she's like, oh, okay. She looks at it. She says, I can do it. And starts like putting things in the ramen. She says, we'll put the spinach at 3 o'clock. And then he like smacks her and he's like, what are you doing? And so I'm making the ramen. And he's like, no. And then, but again, neither of them are speaking in each other's languages. So they don't know. She doesn't know that she's supposed to observe the ramen.
Right.
So much would have become clearer. I don't understand. Instead, she just has this, it's going to be fine. Meanwhile, her name is Gretchen.
I will say, if either you or my aunt went to Spanish, you would learn the language.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So then Toshi wanted to be a musician, we find out, but he had to do business things because that's what is expected of him.
Yes.
And then they decide they're going to go to the ramen museum on a date together. It's going to be really fun. She didn't know there was a ramen museum, and
There's
she
a couple. Did you know there's 3?
I did not.
2 of them are in Tokyo.
Oh wow! They don't go to the one in
One is
Tokyo.
at the station.
They go to a different place. They're really excited, and she didn't know there was a ramen museum, and she laughs, and they have a good time. Well, they haven't gone yet. Anyways, so meanwhile, then she sees what's his name. I actually can't
Wait,
remember.
one of them shut down.
Oh, sad. So, she sees the head chef man crying over the pictures of his son, and it's sad. But then she decorates for Christmas, or the other way around.
Chef's name?
I really wish I could remember.
Rachel.
The problem is they don't say it a lot because she doesn't say it a lot because he is.
Sensei.
It's just sensei, but also she doesn't. They don't speak each other's language. They don't talk to each other. Except they talk about Abby. That's why I know Abby's name.
I mean, he does sound exactly like a curmudgeonly anime character.
Yeah.
Just
Like
refuses to
a
try
kind of
things.
mean Uncle Iroh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she's still making the broth. Toshi and her have a hard conversation about how he has to go to Shanghai, but then he asks her to go with him instead of the other way around. Her trying, and she's like, well, no. She decides not to go. I think it has to do with the ramen. I'm not entirely sure,
Okay.
but she decides not to go.
Okay.
But Toshi and her, they are in love, Ruth. They are in love apparently, but they're not, and they're gone. Sad. So, she tries to make the ramen, and it doesn't work, and he doesn't like it, and she's like, please teach me. Teach me how to have tamashi or tamashi. Tamashi. It means spirit. Teach me how to have spirit for the ramen. So the next day in the Japanese countryside, they've driven to the Japanese countryside, and she meets the old man's mother, who also, it turns out, makes ramen. They find her in the back chopping wood. I love it. It's so good. They're like, hello, is anyone here? He says in Japanese, and then he's like, oh, okay. And he goes around to the back. He hears the sound. She's there, just chopping wood. And now we get the insight. So she tries some of Abby's ramen. She tries some of Abby's ramen, and she's like, well, she cooks with her head and not with a deep, quiet place within her.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't know. Well, she does know, but she knows how to do it all, but she doesn't. Cook from. And so your ramen is meant to be an expression of your love. It's a gift to each consumer. That sound, folks, is real alarming, I know, and it's just the major construction that's happening in the area we're driving. It's not the aliens.
I thought it was the aliens.
Yeah. So, but then Abby's like, but I don't know anything about love. And she says, every time I thought I was in love, it wasn't good. She says, start by putting your tears in the ramen.
Your tears?
Yeah, your tears in the ramen.
That's unhygienic.
Well, cry into the ramen. So then, back at the ranch, Abby is now going to serve the regulars because the lady, the mom, I call her the mom because she's just the best. She's arranged this. The head guy, Sensei is not there, but the regulars are there, and Abby's there, and the mom is there. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this is crucial. First I'll talk about this. So you have this whole, like, Abby making ramen moment, and it's really sad, and she's crying into her ramen, and all of these emotions are at play, Ruth. All of these emotions are at play. And, so she serves the ramen. She's like, how do they like it? And they're like, oh, we like it good. It's fine, you know? And then the young guy who liked Abby earlier starts crying, and he's like, I'm never gonna get married. It's so sad. And then the guy next to him starts crying. They both start crying. And then the third woman starts crying about her dead dog. And everybody starts crying. It's kind of funny. And then the old man shows up, and he starts crying. No, not crying. He tries the ramen, and then he runs away. And then the mom just dies laughing. She's like, I didn't have any of the ramen. It's very, I don't quite understand. It was very funny, though.
Was it?
I thought it was kind of funny at the time.
Why was it funny?
I didn't think it was funny, but she laughed good.
Okay.
I liked her laughter.
Okay.
Yeah. So it should be noted, what's happened already, the sensei made a deal with the father-son duo, and he said, so the grandmaster, the ramen grandmaster is coming to town to give his blessing to the guy's son.
Yeah.
And he said, I bet Abby can't, I whatever. And then he says, actually, Abby's also going to receive his blessing when he comes to town.
Oh, no.
And if she doesn't get his blessing, I'm gonna close up shop. No. So I know, it's very dramatic. So the time has come, and the grandmaster shows up, and the father-son duo, the grandmaster eats the small little bit of meat and a small little bit of broth, and he literally coughs up the meat. It's real weird. It's like, oh my goodness. And he dips his finger right into the ramen and like tastes it or whatever, and he says, it's good, whatever. Then he goes to Abby's, and Abby has done wild things like put corn in her ramen. And he eats that ramen, and he drinks some of the broth, and everyone's like, what's happening? And he says, it's good, but she's not ready for his blessing. And sad, but he's not ready. She calls it the ramen goddess, by the way, after her friend who had a bit of a crisis in Japan. Yeah. Anyway, so then the bad guy's all like, I'm gonna buy your store when you're ready. Just let me know when you move out. And it's a jerk or whatever. So the next day, that night, Sensei is sitting in the bar or in the ramen shop, and Abby shows up. He starts talking to her, and he says, you just have no respect, you Abby. But it's great because they're not shouting. They're just talking. He's like, you have no respect.
She has no idea what he's saying. Okay.
Well, wait for it. Okay. So, corn in your ramen.
Uh-huh.
The ramen goddess. Who do you think you are? And he's like, but I didn't need you to tell her all this. And then he's like, do you know what I'm saying? And she's like, a little bit. She knows a little bit of what he's saying. It's kind of sweet. And he says, okay, well, he's like, my son, he went away to Paris. They've already talked about this one. It's very sad. Well, actually, she thought she could get the leg up on him, but then, again, not the aliens, folks. And then it didn't really work because he was just sad. So, but then he's like, yeah, my son, he went away to Paris to learn, and he didn't want to be in a tiny little Japanese shop, a Japanese ramen shop. And he's like, but I'm going to name you my successor. And then they hug, and it's really sweet. And so she's a successor, but he has to sell the store, right? Then Abby, it says like 1 year later, no, Abby then has to go. That's right, this is not a year later yet. Abby has to go, and then she gets put on the shrine and paraded through the street as she's going.
What?
I really don't know what happened. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating that way. But the old man gives her a red lantern before she goes, so that's fun.
Nice.
And then it goes to 1 year later, and you see a picture of the sensei and his wife and their son all in Paris together. And you're like, oh, they're happy together. But she's in New York, and she runs a little ramen shop in New York called the Ramen Girl. And guess who shows up? Because he quit his job and started playing music.
Oh no.
Joshi!
Poor Joshi.
He's like, what would Abby do? And she did this, and so he goes, and then they're happy, and
Abby is a terrible.
they're together now. So yeah, that's the story, Ruth.
Really?
Yeah, that's it.
Huh.
So it's weird because, as you could tell, sort of by my description, not a lot of action happens,
Yeah.
and at the same time, it's not really like a contemplative story. Like,
No.
it's a in a weird way, it's a mystical story because it's about the spirit and it's
Yeah.
about the heart that you pour into your ramen. And yeah, it's a weird genre in that way. It doesn't quite fit in other things. It's usually categorized as like a rom-com, but it's not really about.
Yeah.
It's not like a rom-com because it's not the romanticness. But yeah,
Blake says it's a ramen com.
it's a ramen-com. It's a ramen-com. Thank you, Blakey. Yeah. So yeah, what do you think, Ruth?
I want to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I would be curious to know what you think because it's a bit abrasive at times. Yeah. And folks, if we want to know what you think, we have an Instagram.
Oh no. Okay, so how many media platforms do we have now?
2 plus a YouTube channel that is still sad and not quite put together.
That's about right.
Yeah, so you can follow us on Twitter. We're at Lost in Theaters. You can follow us on Instagram, similarly labeled. And yeah, if you watch the movie, tell us your thoughts on our post that will be about this movie, The Ramen Girl. It'll be great. Yeah, it's gonna be. Follow us on Instagram. That's what I was trying to say.
That's what you said.
I know. It's really
I think.
thoughts and brains and all they are.
And ramen.
Ramen. I love ramen. It's good.
Rainy ramen.
Yeah. Yeah. Shall we finish with a song? I love ramen. You do too. Oh no.
This is about to be extended.
No, it just got really intense. I can't speak today. I love ramen. You do too. Everybody eat some ramen. It's not goo. It's noodles and sauce. Yum, yum, yum. It makes your tummy feel. Anyway, thanks for listening, folks. Any last words, Ruth?
I love my sister very much.
Oh, good. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
We'll see you next week. I did it again. We're gonna finish releasing our first season of podcasts at the end of December. But then we'll be back in February. So this is not the last podcast, but we're close. I think this is the anti-penultimate podcast because I think we have 2 more. That's my theory.
This is so confusing. Are we taking January off?
Yeah, January. All January.
Okay.
There'll be no podcast. We'll be back in February. But we have a couple more in December, so don't worry.